I'm Paul Sullivan, your host of the Company of Dads podcast, where we explore the sweet, sublime, strange, and silly aspects of being a lead dad in a world where men often feel they have to hide or at least not talk about their parenting role. I know this from firsthand experience as the lead dad to my 3 girls, 3 dogs, 3 cats, and somewhat remarkably, 3 fish. I did this all while managing my career and striving to be an above average husband. One thing I know for sure about being a lead dad is it's not a normal role. You're not doing what dads have traditionally done, going to work and leaving the parenting to mom or someone else. Nor are you always welcome into the world where moms are the primary caregivers. But here at the Company of Dads, our goal is to shake all that off and focus on what really matters: family, friendship, finance, and fun. Today, my guest is Nick Brophy, father of 5 children ages 7 to 24. Nick played football at Princeton, where the team won the Ivy League championship his junior year. He then worked on Wall Street, taking a very traditional path into the world of finance. He loved it and excelled at it for nearly 20 years. His wife, Sarah, was also enjoying a thriving career in banking. Then they started having kids. In 2013, after adopting their 3rd child, Nick's wife found out she was pregnant. They're at a crossroads. So Nick put his hand up to be the lead dad. The past 9 years have taken him on a journey he hadn't planned on, one that's been rewarding, but not without its challenges. Men, society still says, are supposed to be the breadwinners, and nowhere is that more true than on Wall Street. Today, Nick is an owner of 2 bakeries, while his wife, Sarah, is in her dream job working at Uber. Nick, got a lot to talk about here. Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me.
So start off, just, describe your life as you and your wife were working and your family was growing, kind of growing, quickly at points. What was it like back then?
Yeah. So we got married a little bit later in life, as people in New York City tend to do. So we got married, I think I was just about 30 years old. And
that's ancient, Nick. That's ancient. It's all, aches and pains, everything.
In some parts of the country it is, right? In terms of getting married. So we were both on Wall Street, and for a while we had what we like to call, we were DWINKs, dual Wall Street income, no kids. And which was a fun place to be. We got to do lots of things, went out to dinners and traveled when we wanted to, and then we got the idea to have a family, and we adopted, and our first child was a baby, and it changed things. As you know, I think as a parent, I always said, and maybe you would agree, but going from 0 to 1 kid is the hardest.
Yeah.
Going from 1 to 2, you kind of been there, done that, and it just there's economies of scale in parenting. So 0 to 1 was the hardest, and we expanded our family. Our next child was adopted, and she was almost 11 when we got her. So we went from like 0 kids to like an 11-year-old within a year, which was pretty remarkable.
And then you kept going, right? You didn't stop there.
Going.
It's like
we
why quit at 2?
So we adopted. My wife had some weird thing that happened, which was one of the reasons we adopted. Was she had like an esophageal tear, and so it was caused, I think she had like a stomach flu, and she threw up and she tore her esophagus and had tons of internal bleeding, and so she was scared to death of throwing up for years, and so she didn't want to get morning sickness. So that's why that was one of the reasons we chose to adopt in the beginning. And then and so we finally had a biological child. I guess that was around 2010, and then we struggled getting pregnant for a while, and we were trying to have some more kids, and we decided to adopt again. And that's when we adopted our daughter from India, this time domestically from Indiana, and we were with her about 2 weeks old. She was 2 weeks old. We had her since birth. We were there when she was born. We brought her home, and my wife's like, I need to talk to you. I'm pregnant. I was like, what? So 8 months later, we had our 5th and for now final child. And our life changed just incredibly quickly. Going from 0 to 1 was hard, but from 0 to 5 in a really short period of time was pretty special.
Did you find yourself leaning on some of those old like football skills from your Princeton days, where you're guarding multiple people as they come across the line?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a pretty good analogy. For a while, my wife and I thought like the analogy we used was like there's cracks starting to show up in the dam, and like our fingers and toes were filling in the cracks. And that's what our lives felt like. I mean, I can remember the day we were on a vacation, and we're what is a vacation when you have 3 young kids? We're on a vacation.
Yeah,
and
Nick, we don't call that a vacation. We call that family time. A vacation is when you and your
yeah,
wife go away.
yeah. So we started saying family trips, which is
Yeah.
the same. So we were on a family trip, and we just sort of looked at each other, and we were overwhelmed. And that analogy of like the dam leaking, and both of our hands were plugging holes and our feet were plugging holes, and there were still leaks sprouting up, and we were just like, what are we doing? And that's when we had a long talk about how are we going to handle this. We live in this frenetic city with these kids, and a couple of them have learning challenges, and our daughter, who was at the time a teenager, was really, really struggling with learning and emotional and psychological challenges. And it just like something had to give. And we had a long conversation about it. And, given what her career aspirations were versus mine, and where, I was in my career versus her, I raised my hand. It was what was needed for our family to take a step back and focus on getting us through that patch.
Yeah, but let's drill down on that a bit, because before starting the company Dads, I was a business reporter for a long time. I was young in New York City at one point as well, and the life of a guy working on Wall Street is pretty fun. It's stressful, but it's intense, and particularly you as a former Division I athlete. I mean, you get that adrenaline rush, and it's. What was that like to give up? How did you think, like, boy, okay, the family comes first. I want to support my wife's career, but it's pretty fun for those who don't know what it's like to work on Wall Street.
I think athletes gravitate towards the trading side. I was on the trading side, so I think athletes gravitate towards that, just for what you said. Like, there's a lot of adrenaline. Every day is like a new adventure, and I liked my job. It was intellectually stimulating, especially when I was earlier in my career and I was trading. It was like, we were trying to find a better way to build a mousetrap. We were derivatives traders and trying to create interesting ways to make money. And that was fun. I was very close to, I lost one of my best friends on 9/11. And I sort of vowed to myself at that point, like, life is short. I don't want to do this forever. And maybe I have 5 more years. And it took me a few more than those 5 years to get out of it. But I did sort of make that assessment. And it was because I was really impacted by what happened on that day. And I was right. I worked right across the street. I was at 250 Vesey Street in the World Financial Center. And I was on the phone with him after, he worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. I was on the phone with him after the plane hit, and it impacted me. And so I sort of made a vow to myself that I was going to get out of it and focus on what's important in life. And it took me longer to do it than I would have expected, because it's hard to walk away. There's an ego component to it that's huge. You feel like you're the master of the universe. You're getting paid lots of money. You're paying people. As a manager, you're paying people lots of money. And the ego gratification that goes with all of the stages of that career was hard to get over. It took me a couple of years. I won't lie when I say that every time somebody gave me a phone call, within a couple of years of my hanging up my hat, I got excited. And it might not be like the job that I would have been excited about 2-3 years ago, but like, oh wow, this person still wants to talk to me. I'll talk to them. I might be interested in going back. And it took me a while to sort of unwrap all that and figure out why was I interested in that phone call and get away from it.
Some people may not know this, but the euphemism on Wall Street when somebody is let go either for head count or because they've done something like mind-bendingly egregious is they're going to go spend more time with their family. And you read that in the press release, you're like, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit. No way. What do you really do? But that's actually what you did. So what was your reaction among, your friends, your college friends, your Wall Street friends, the people who were your buddies before you met Sarah and got married and started having kids?
So I think I'm a pretty genuine person. I'm a straight shooter, and I went into my boss at Citibank, and he's a great guy. And I just said, listen, we're struggling with our daughter. Like, it is touch and go. She's having a lot of negative thoughts. I'm like, somebody needs to be around her. I'm like, I can't do my job like you need me to do it and focus on that. So I need to step away. Like, you don't want me running the business because I can't focus on it right now. And he was good. I think because I was, an honest person and genuine and a straight shooter, like, he understood that was actually what was going on. Yeah. And he helped me out of there. I think my colleagues were also similarly supportive, and my friends, I think, were, in a sense, I didn't go with, I don't think I was full disclosure with a lot of my friends about why I was doing it. But I think, when I talked to them, they were generally just like jealous. There's a lot of people who are like, wow, you don't have to like go to work for 12 hours a day anymore. Like, that's pretty good, So I would say I got good support from my superiors and my peers at work, and definitely from my friend at work, my Princeton friends in particular.
Yeah. But, the cliche, the grass is always greener on the other side. Once you actually did it, once you actually committed to it, you left Wall Street, you left, a certain type of Nick Brophy behind. What was it like as you sort of created the new version of you and settled into this very different life than you'd been living, through your 20s and 30s?
It was uncomfortable. And I think for a while, like, I sort of invented like stories about myself. Like, I wasn't comfortable telling people I was a stay-at-home parent, or, the term lead dad hadn't been branded at that point, or else I would have grasped onto it. But I joined an angel investing community, which was a great way for me to expand my network and meet entrepreneurs and just sort of get out of the Wall Street bubble. But I also did it because, like, I wanted something to tell people that I did. I started consulting. I was an expert witness for some financial lawsuits. And again, I didn't need the money that came with that. I think I didn't really need to spend the time on it, but like, I wanted to be able to say, like, this is what I do. Like, I needed something for my identity. My identity was, I'm a Wall Street trader. I run a big business on, fixed income trading business. And I needed something because I wasn't comfortable saying, like, I'm a stay-at-home parent. And, similarly, like, it's a little awkward when you're the lead dad, because, you're going to the playground and it's, in Manhattan, it's either nannies or moms, like, there's not a ton of dads on the playground, and more so but there are a few, and certainly there's more in Manhattan than there are in the suburbs. When I came down, because we live in New Jersey now, when I came down here, there's not a lot of dads going around during the day. Like, everybody's going to work. So it's atypical.
Mm-hmm. Now, angel investing, for people who don't know, is making investments really early on in a business, in an idea. But if I remember correctly from some of our previous conversations, this is an angel investing group focused on women-owned businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it was
founded by
it was founded by women to invest in women-owned businesses. And literally, you either have to be founded by or run by, like, someone in the C-suite, by a woman to get funding from this group. And the way I got connected with them, obviously my wife is all about girl power, and I do everything to support her. So she was excited about this idea. But I had applied to 4 or 5 New York angel investing groups and, like, hadn't heard from any of them. And, this particular group is called Golden Seeds. And their website is great. They responded to me. They were happy to have me. They had a training program. And so, founded and organized by women, it's well run. So, they got me in there. I got some training, and, like, they're super organized. They have, monthly meetings where, like, the entrepreneurs come and pitch, and then, like, you get to sort of join diligence teams, and, like, it's a real collaborative effort. And I liked it a lot. I know a lot of these people there.
Yep. And are you still involved in it?
I'm still involved, but now that we don't live in the city, I'm not as involved. But I invested in probably 7 companies out of with them that I'm still sort of active with, and then and it sort of sparked me to start the bakery. That was, like, part of the the impetus for me doing this.
That was my next question. I mean, that's what I want to hear more about. How did the bakery come about? You have 2 locations now. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we started in Brooklyn. So, one of our children is adopted from Ethiopia. So when he was in first grade, he joined a school in the city that had just opened. It was a new private school. We were the sort of the founding years, and in his class there was another boy who had been adopted from Ethiopia. Totally random. They lived in Brooklyn, but we became friends with the parents, and the father and I in particular became pretty good friends. And he was completely different from me. He's like a fashion photographer. I'm like walking around in my suits because I still worked on Wall Street at the time, and he's like total Brooklyn hipster, but we ended up becoming friends.
This is like a sitcom right here. This is a sitcom in the making.
It could be. I mean, totally. And so over the years, we just stayed close. Our sons were friends. They would have play dates. He would come over, and since I wasn't working and he had a pretty flexible schedule, the boys would be playing and we could be sitting around having a beer and chatting, which was kind of the best play date ever.
Yeah.
And so he was telling me, he's like, photography is just sort of going downhill. It's really changing with digital photography, and everybody's got the iPhone, and it's not the same art that it used to be. And I'm really looking, and so he went on this business trip, and he found this bakery in Iceland, and it was just sort of like completely took him over. He was obsessed with their breads. Their sourdough breads were nothing like anything he'd ever had. And he sort of asked them on a whim, like, hey, could I do an apprenticeship here? Because I want to learn how to bake. And they're like, yeah, we just opened a new store. Like, come on in. And so he worked there for about a month, and he learned the trade, and he came back to Brooklyn, and he rented a space on the weekends and was making breads. And he's telling me the story. And I was like, dude, I'm like investing in strangers' businesses. Like, you've got the passion that I see in these other founders. Like, let's do it. Let's start a business. And so we started a bakery in Brooklyn in 2018. Made a few pivots in terms of what we were selling and how we were selling it over the years, but it's done pretty well.
Yeah.
And then when I moved down to New Jersey during the pandemic, I was like, there is nothing like this. I mean, we make sourdough breads and tons of different pastries. Like,
but you were ahead of the curve. You were making sourdough bread before everybody was locked in their house saying, I'm going to make some sourdough bread.
We had all the ingredients, right? We had the starter. So, and it was hard to get those ingredients during the pandemic, but we could get them. But it was, so we opened one down here, and it's done great. And I got to hire some of my family members, my uncle and my cousin to work there. It's been awesome.
What's the bakery called?
Nick and Sons.
Nick and Sons. Okay.
Yeah. So my business partner is also named Nick, and
What's going on? You also named Nick. You both adopted children from Ethiopia. You both okay. All right. This is a sitcom. This is it.
You're right, the our next thing.
What are you known for? Are you known for the sourdough bread, or what?
Well, the croissants. So we won an award.
Of course, because he learned how to bake in Iceland, and Iceland is known for its croissants. So that makes perfect sense.
Exactly. And we won an award, Best Croissant in New York City, Best Craft Croissant was the title.
That's legit.
In 2021, yeah. Now, it wasn't the New York Times that like gave us that claim, but it was like this foodie sort of Instagram thing that has a decent amount of followers, and we're gonna run with it. So.
I mean, for New York City listeners here, like, did Balthazar, did they come after you, like start gunning for you, like you had a better croissant than they did? Some of the real Frenchy
totally.
places?
I mean, it's not even close. I mean, Balthazar, it's like, I mean, if you had one of those lately, they're not. They're mass producing them. I mean, ours are made by hand, and it's we only make a certain number. So
I'm just imagining now, like, you go back almost 30, trash talking on the gridiron the way you're trash talking about croissants.
It's a very different type of trash talking.
So during all of this, your kids they're growing, they're getting older. What was happening with your wife and her career while you were pursuing this other avenue?
So she had what I would say was a great work-life balance at her employer. She was there for almost 25 years at Credit. She worked at Credit Suisse, and she just had a great work-life balance and had enough sort of institutional credibility there that she could spend family time when she needed it, work from home when she needed it, even before, like way before the pandemic. But she just felt like she needed to push herself and like try something new. So she switched jobs to join Goldman Sachs, probably in like 2017 or so. And And it was an eye opener. Maybe it was 2016. It was an eye opener though. I mean, it was like, I think she worked twice as hard, like, and she was pretty, I mean, she was probably the hardest working person at Credit Suisse, and she worked twice as hard when she joined Goldman Sachs. And that's just the pace everyone there ran at. And she did it for 5 years, and then she decided to pivot again to just like try a completely different industry. But she's driven. She's got career goals. You know, we've talked a lot about it. Like she wants to keep accomplishing, and I'm 100% supportive of that. And anything I can do to help by being the lead dad and taking this stuff, I'm doing.
Yeah. What was it like during the pandemic when, you know, you're running the show at home, you have your bakery, you have your investments, but then your wife is also home and she's, you know, that's not what, you know, Goldman Sachs employees do. They don't work from home. So, I mean, what was that experience like for the whole family to have, you know, one, a pandemic, but two, this, you know, environment at home that you've never had before?
So there was like there's a couple of answers to that. So the one answer was, it was great because she could be more present with the kids. I mean, like, you know, we're a couple blocks away from the ocean here. And, you know, when in between phone calls, I mean, she would spend half her time in the city going back and forth to Midtown. You know, like she was in taxis or Ubers going from Goldman's headquarters downtown up to Midtown offices to see her clients. So take that away, she was probably having 30 to 40% more meetings, but had more time in between where she could go for a walk on the beach, engage with the kids. I mean, it was really nice. And it gave her a taste of, man, maybe I don't need to be in the office all the time to, like, you know, be successful and have a career. So that was great. But there was also times where, you know, we were when the pandemic started, we had 2 kindergartners who were trying to do remote learning on iPads at the kitchen table, which abuts the room her office is in, that has French class doors, but the kids are like, you know, pounding on the doors, and she's doing Zooms, and I'm screaming at them because they're not paying attention to the English teacher, you know? And it was just like.
So what you're telling me is it went really smoothly. It went great.
Perfect.
But then the other, you know, by that, is your oldest daughter out of the house at that point, or do you have all 5 kids?
She was in the house for probably the first 3 months of like the lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a full house. Yeah.
Full house. Plus we have a 110-pound dog.
What kind of dog?
Bernedoodle. Bernie's mountain dog crossed with a poodle. And we just got a second one like a couple weeks ago. So
all right. You know, I'm not, you know, Nick, my name isn't Nick. I don't know how to bake sourdough bread, but I have 2 Bernedoodles.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. One is 70 pounds more poodle. The other is edging close to 100 more Bernese. So
yeah, they're good dogs. I like them.
You know, one of the things I talk about is, you know, not just the, you know, the role that men play as a lead dad, but the role that companies need to play with working moms and lead dads. And one of the things I bang on about is, you know, the phrase work-life balance should be banished. It doesn't make any sense. It's just life. It's life. And in life, sometimes you're with your spouse, sometimes with your kids, sometimes you're, you know, with your colleagues at work, sometimes you're, you know, blissfully, you know, by yourself. You know, we've talked, and it sounded, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounded like the work life, you know, the ability to work remotely at Goldman wasn't that easy, but in your wife's new position at Uber, it gives her more flexibility so that you as a family can sort of enjoy some of the good parts of the pandemic while, you know, still knowing that, you know, you have to go to an office, you have to travel. Is that fair to say that she struck more of a balance in 2022 than there was perhaps in 2019?
Definitely. And, you know, I think different companies are approaching this differently. Now, Uber being a tech company, I think they've been sort of ahead of the curve, maybe even before the pandemic, with respect to how people work and incorporate work into their lives. I think Goldman Sachs is, you know, very public about taking the other track and trying to go back to before pandemic ways. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a lot of employee pushback on that. I mean, there's some companies, even within finance, I mean, you can look at like Citibank has said, we're going to embrace this remote working thing and give people flexibility because we realize it's important. And Goldman Sachs has said, we're not, you know? And so I don't know where the winners are going to end up shaking out or when, but, you know, it feels like there's a paradigm shift. And for us, it was really important. And for my wife, you know, because she wants to be able to
Yeah.
to be more present with the kids.
Yeah. I'm sure it's the same in your town as it is in mine, but a lot of the folks who would commute into the city, they were basically home for 18 months or more, and now they're really starting to go back. And so the town feels a little different. How has that been for you to sort of, in the pandemic, I don't know, maybe you have more buddies around, more friends, and now you're kind of recalibrating, going back to something that, isn't 2020, but it isn't 2019 either. It feels different. How has that been for you as a lead dad?
Yeah, so I don't have that sort of experience yet because we didn't live here before, so I didn't have like a friend set down here, and we're still sort of working on building the set of like the social circle down here. So we have friends that we've made some. But I don't have a before to compare it to because we didn't, we were here on the weekends and we sort of kept to ourselves with our kids and I think we're good. It's a tough commute to the city here. There are people that do the daily commute here,
Right.
but it's not as many as there might be in Canaan.
Right. Good. Nick, I really enjoyed talking to you. I always like to give the last question to my guest or last answer to my guest. Any last thoughts? Anything I didn't ask that you want to share about your journey as a lead dad that you think some other listeners might be able to benefit from?
Well, I guess there's two things. Number one is when I do talk to my friends now, I would say all of them. I actually mentioned I mentioned your term lead dad to one of my friends, and he said, I got to tell you, it's like the best part of my day when I get to like be hands-on with my kids, So I think there's a lot of dads who are doing it and or wish they could do it more. But I like the company of dads because like the one thing I miss is the social component that came with work. When you're home and you're a dad, you don't have that social network. You don't have the water cooler talk and there's not a lot of other dads going to school pickup or going to the playground during the day. Like I think pulling it together and getting the company of dads, to be a thing, it could be really important for those dads that are home because I think they're gonna, at least for me, I need that social connection. I was looking for it for a long time and it took me a few years to figure it out.
Good. Nick, thanks again. I really appreciate your time today. It's been enjoyable.
All right. Thank you.